Okay, so Australian standards. First, we're going to kick off with AS3740, which is the internal wet area waterproofing standard. Andrew, as you know, there's a lot of changes coming up. We've got a new version of this coming out very soon. Also, the changes with the building code. Would you mind filling us in on some of the key hot topics or hot areas of concern that the end users should be looking out for within these standards?
Yeah, sure thing, Kieran. As of 1st of September this year, the new building code will be adopted into industry throughout Australia. It's a requirement that all builders follow the building code and the performance requirements that are stated in the code. And the code is going to be referencing the new Australian standard AS3740, which was published in 2021. So as of 1st of September, the rules are going to be changing. Now, there are a little bit of conflict in this area. So the NCC, or the National Construction Code, the building code, takes precedence in all matters where there is a dispute between the building code and the Australian standard.
I think this is a great topic you bring up too. A lot of people think the standards are the be-all and the end-all, but at the end of the day, the building code is always number one. The standards are the reference point. So
yeah, that's right.
The key thing you bring up there.
That's right. And as far as the building code has been structured, the building code takes precedence. The building code covers off on most of the issues within internal waterproofing, but there are clauses within the code that state that you are to use the building code and 3740. So where the code doesn't pick up on some issues such as rain heads coming out of the ceiling or vertical water stops close to doorways, that's where you'd use the Australian standard 3740 to supplement what the building code doesn't cover.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So would you like to give us a bit of an overview on the key differences that you see between the building code and the new AS3740 standard that's coming out, just so that the end user can get a bit of an idea of sort of the key topics they should be looking at doing a bit more research into?
Sure thing. To start with, the building code now references another document which is called the housing provisions. The housing provisions have got a list of requirements that you need to follow when you're putting together a waterproofing system for internal wet areas. So the first point of difference is the treatment to the shower walls. In the Australian standard, we're only meant to waterproof 150 up from the base of the floor, the sheet joints, any penetrations such as sheet fixings into the wall, junctions between the sheet, tap and rose penetrations, where in the building code it's now going to be a requirement to waterproof the complete wall of the shower with a membrane system to a minimum of 1800 millimetres high from the shower floor. The second main difference are falls and drainage. Okay, so within the Australian standard there's always been minimal ratios for your falls to drainage at surface level. And those minimal ratios traditionally have been 1 in 60 to 1 in 80 and 1 in 100 fall. 1 in
100, yep.
Yeah, so just to explain, a 1 in 100 fall is where you have a metre, you need to achieve 10 millimetre fall over that metre. Now where the Australian standard says that you're required to have 1 in 100 fall to all areas that has a floor waste outside of a shower, the building code has now changed that prescription, and it says that you need to have a minimum of 1 in 80 fall and a maximum of 1 in 50 fall.
And look, this could be a big area that could catch people out, so it's definitely a key topic.
Yeah.
And an area of concern that people will need to address in their screeds.
Exactly right. So, and that brings us to the next issue. Okay, so within the Australian standard and the building code, but it's referred more to in the Australian standard, wherever a floor waste is required, okay, so when it appears on a plan, whether you're putting a floor waste in a toilet, in a bathroom, in a shower or in a laundry, then the requirement will be that you need to provide 1 in 80 fall at membrane level, which in most cases is going to mean that you'd need to put down a bonded screed or a mortar bed and waterproof on top of that mortar bed to achieve that fall.
Exactly, and the key part on that was that they also mentioned that's only if a floor waste is installed.
That's right. So for example, if we have a shower and the shower has an enclosed screen, then there's no requirement to have a floor waste or fall to the outer bathroom area. Great. But as soon as we have an open unenclosed shower, so this one's intended to have a shower screen here, we walk through here, shower hose is coming out of the ceiling and we've got another one over the dog bath that's going to spray out onto the outer floor. Now we require a second floor waste, so we have to apply a screed and waterproof on top of that screed at 1 in 80 fall.
Great. All right, so here we are on an external simulated deck that's been created by all the guys in your training course here for Master Builders for Cert 3 waterproofing. Now we're going to be talking about AS4654, which is the external above ground standard. Now Andrew, as you know, there's some key differences between this and AS3740, the internal standard. Can you just cover off on some of the key factors and the difference between the standards and the key factors where you typically see failures and where things can go wrong?
Sure thing. First of all, we need to understand that when selecting a waterproofing system for an external deck, it's a different environment. In a bathroom, the shower gets wet every day. On a deck, it gets wet periodically, but we have a lot more movement and influences such as thermal interaction. We've got uncontrollable weather conditions over the top. We've got uncontrollable air movement underneath the deck. So the deck can be subject to things like condensation rising up from underneath and cyclic movement. Waterproofing membranes are normally tested for a specific service life, and in this case, this waterproofing membrane has to accommodate something like 20,000 cycles of expansion and contraction without rupturing.
And the other part of the factor too with external is there's also UV exposure. So sometimes we have finished deck membrane systems that are left exposed to the UV. The other factor as well is not all of these are just standard under tile applications like a internal wet area setup. Sometimes we have pedestal pavers and paver systems that are suspended above a membrane, so we need real tough wearing polyurethane membranes or sheet membrane systems. So there's a lot more factors taken into consideration here in the system selection process, which we talked about before, but also in the overall whole design process.
Yep, so this particular deck is intended to be tiled, and when we select a membrane system for a tiled deck, we want something that's compatible. In this particular case, we've got a water-based membrane that's a class 3 in flexibility, and this membrane is going to be applied at a dry film thickness of 1.6 mil. The same membrane in a bathroom, 1.2 mil, because of the excessive movement that we expect outside.
And of course, as we mentioned, this all comes back to the data sheet that you're using and also the product. It's always product specific depending on what film thickness is required.
Exactly. So we'll start with defects that we see on decks. As per bathrooms, one of the biggest defects is substrate preparation, in particular dust contamination, and choosing the incorrect primer. So on this side of the deck, we haven't primed the deck. We've applied the membrane as would be normally applied with a roller. However, you can see that dirt and dust that's come up off the floor is typically what people would be applying membranes down onto. So I'll cut out a section of membrane now and we can see what sort of contamination is underneath and what sort of bond may have been formed onto a dusty substrate.
Look at that, it's just come off. Look how simply that just comes straight off the substrate. And you can see all the dirt here on the back of it too.
Yep.
So you can imagine if that was on an upturn or a wall and you've got a heavy tile system hanging on that, how prone that would be to a pretty much instant failure.
Yep, 100%, 100%. You need to consider not just the membrane itself, but the finishes on top. There's a lot of shear stresses happening over the top of the membrane, including expansion and contraction within the tiling system and the tiles themselves. So where you don't form a sufficient bond, the membrane's going to rupture, blister, and fail.
All right, so Andrew, let's move to an area where you have primed, just so we can show a key difference in how the adhesion of the substrate is.
Right, so this membrane's been applied in 3 coats with a 2-colour system, and as I said, we're intending to achieve 1.6 mil dry film thickness. The primer that's been used under the membrane is a water-based epoxy primer, which is specifically designed to resist rising damp from condensation coming up underneath the deck. And that's a particular point that's brought up in the standard 4654, that the membrane system has to be suitable for the service conditions. In a damp service condition area, we expect condensation to rise up underneath so that we select a primer that will accommodate that.
And it's a great point that you mentioned about water-based epoxies. You know, they are key to getting excellent adhesion to substrate, but also locking off any potential or residual moisture that can be in a substrate. Look, it already looks a lot harder stuck to the substrate.
Well,
there we go. The membrane's tearing before it's actually lifting. You can see here that the substrate has actually come away with the membrane and is adhered to the back of it. So that is a prime example of solid adhesion to substrate.
And the membrane film thickness here is, as we would expect, this membrane reaches 1.79 millimetre. Okay, where on the other side, in a two-coat system, and using the roller as you would paint a wall, the membrane measures 0.7 of a mil.
All right, and for our last point, Andrew, water containment. We talked about this back over in the other area with internal wet area waterproofing, but water containment's a little bit different when it comes to AS4654. Can you cover off on what you've got here?
That's right. So under the building code, it's a requirement that water doesn't enter an opening, and an opening under 4654 would be a window or a door. It is a major issue where detail is not followed through the Australian standard 4654 to waterproof in and around the threshold of a door. To start with, what we're dealing with is wind-driven rain and owners with hoses. And owners with hoses are worse than wind-driven rain. So we need to make this opening as watertight as we can. The Australian standard gives us some informative information, and that is that we adjust the height of the membrane according to the wind speed to account for wind-driven rain. So for example, on this deck, the builders in this exercise have created a reglet which would be chased out into the masonry wall at 100 millimetres above the finished floor level of the deck. Finished floor level being top of tile, not underneath the tile.
So look, Andrew, I think you bring up a good point there too. So here we're 100 mil above the finished floor height. Depending on your substrate, the wind rating, which you mentioned before, there is the table A1, which is mentioned in AS4654, and should always be your reference point for how far you should be finishing above finished floor height.
Our problem is though, because we want to finish the waterproofing at 100 millimetres above, the door threshold is only 70 mil above the finished floor level.
And this is a real typical issue that we see very commonly.
Exactly. So the standard requires that where you don't achieve the recommended height according to the wind speed, that the waterproofing is taken underneath the door sill and dressed to an internal water stop angle to make up for the reduced height at the door.
All right, guys, well, that's a wrap up from us here today. Andrew, Golle, thank you very much for your time today. Very much appreciated. We've only really covered off on a small amount today. There's so much more in-depth knowledge that's required when it comes to AS4654 for external and AS3740 for internal. Please get a copy of the standards, and if you've got any further questions, please talk to industry-based experts like Andrew and people like, and also your local supplier. Thank you very much.